Last time we broke out of a chicken farm. Well, this time, we're breaking in.
Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget. After over 23 years, Ginger and the chickens are back on a brand new dangerous operation. May I just say that I love the first Chicken Run. It's amazing how this is Aardman's first animated feature, and they managed to nail it on the first try. It's one of those spoofs that's so great that it is considered groundbreaking among Prison Break movies and among the best in the genre. I'll even go as far and say that it's not only one of my favorite Aardman works, but also one of my favorite stop-motion movies. So when I heard that several years later, Aardman was ready to bring back characters like Ginger and Rocky on a new adventure, I was like,
oh, what a lovely thought.
Honestly, as much as I love Chicken Run, I was never really excited about the idea of a sequel. I know I just went through how wonderful it is, but I feel like it's one of those films that's great on its own. It ended off on a good note for the characters, and all the loose ends have been tied. Why choose to create new conflicts for them, especially when it's been over 2 decades since they did anything with the property? But who knows, maybe there could be a valid reason to bring this back and tell this exciting new story. I mean, the studio did very well with the last sequel they made with Shaun the Sheep Farmageddon, so maybe they'll make it work for Chicken Run as well. So now that we're breaking into this movie, will this dawn a new era for these chickens? Or are they now better off in the hands of Mrs. Tweedy? Let's find out. The story. If you're looking for that same kind of rescue mission where chickens take down a farm for their own freedom, then you're in luck because this movie brings back that action-packed fun of the original. While the hens are primarily focused on trying to save Ginger and Rocky's daughter, Molly, from a high-tech facility called Funland Farm, that sense of adventure is still there as they navigate their way around security and other forms of obstacles within with all the crackpot gadgets that they have at their disposal, capable of delivering that element of fun that can have a bit of intensity, but also keep it lighthearted to sprinkle in some humor to make the mission enjoyable for everyone.
You sure you can make this work?
Oh yeah, there is nothing Fetch don't know about electrics.
But sadly, that is as far as the story can deliver, and the rest that it offers is pretty stale. Outside of the mission, the film focuses on Ginger and Rocky's new life in their sanctuary by raising Molly, and how she's grown to be not only courageous, but also curious of the world beyond their home. It's the kind of narrative that makes me look at what the movie established and ask, that's it? That's the best you came up with? For a studio like Aardman, who has a knack of getting its audiences engaged with their stories, this is kind of disappointing that they have to rely on a predictable plot. Sure, I could see where the work was carefully crafted on the action, but it treats the elements outside of that like an afterthought, as if it's just filler until they can get into the good stuff. But this is where the core of the movie's problem lays. Chicken Run is not just about the missions and escaping the wrath of Mrs. Tweedy.
Are you all right, Hen? It's not like you to shy away from danger.
I know, but I have Molly to think about now.
What made the first movie a classic is that it also gives the importance to the chickens themselves, to spend the time for us to get familiar with the characters so that we could connect with them emotionally, thus becoming more invested into the picture so that we could feel what is at stake when Ginger and the hens try to escape Mrs. Tweedy's farm and what it means to them if they succeeded. Dawn of the Nugget, on the other hand, doesn't seem to understand that. It relies a lot on tiresome tropes to find an excuse for the chickens to be in the new farm. And what's worse is that not only do they cause the feature to become tediously easy to predict the outcomes, but the tropes themselves make the movie feel lazy. They're not just tiringly dull, but these are considered cliches even back when the first movie was released. I remember that these are the types of plots that Disney would use for their direct-to-home media sequels so that they could be easier to mass produce.
Oh, that looks so bad.
And because of this, it loses its sense of engagement and doesn't do a good job to encourage the audience to see the chickens save the others and dodge the security. Unlike before, I don't find myself caring about what would happen to them if the worst case scenario comes or what this entire operation means to them. It lost the soul of the original and becomes this bland kids movie that is dependent on an already established gimmick. And even at that, it can happen when it's not as strong as it used to be because it sometimes occurs when all it does is repeat what its predecessor did.
We bust our way out, steal the truck, then we're home free.
Well, what are we waiting for?
When looking at how it handles its story, Dawn of the Nugget is a sad sight. It's a desperate attempt of trying to recapture what made the original so good without a clear comprehension of what that film did right, and all it's left with is a novelty that is surrounded by forgettable filler. The animation. At the very least, even when the script is weak, I can always rely on Aardman to deliver some great stop-motion animation. Seriously, if it weren't for the animators, I would have fried this movie hard until it comes out golden brown.
I love you, Mommy.
It remains true to the look of the original, especially with all the chickens maintaining their Nick Park style with their large beaks and googly eyes to help them be expressive. But it shows that they got some new arsenal since the first film to give itself a visual upgrade and do more with the new materials they were given. What I consider to be the highlight of the animation is the new sets that were built and for the chickens to run around in, primarily in the two main areas. First, there's the sanctuary, where it has evolved into a chicken utopia with everything they need without having to worry about outside threat. It's also nice to see how it's all naturally built as if it was all done by the chickens themselves and only used the materials that they could find within the island to build their homes and devices.
Your way, Mac.
More fruit coming, Bunty.
Oh, thanks, Mac. Because I'm working up a thirst here.
But then you have the star location, Funland Farm. Unlike Mrs. Tweedy's previous farm that is like an old-style prison for chickens, this is a factory with all the latest technology that is meant to turn hens into the tastiest of fast food nuggets. This is where you'll find most, if not all, of the movie's creativity that is set up for Ginger and the gang's mission. There are several layers with all the unique security built on the outside to prevent intruders to get in. And once inside, thanks to the character's small stature, they play with scale pretty well to make some of the ordinary parts feel dangerous to them. And of course, this goes without saying that some of the most memorable spots include the room where we first see Tweety looking like an office from an evil lair, and the colorful play area for the chickens, where in contrast to Ginger's sanctuary, is a different kind of paradise whose artificial craftsmanship makes it feel unsettlingly perfect. It's like the chicken equivalent of Pleasure Island from Pinocchio. And what ties all this together is the character animation, not only supplying the strong acting to convey the emotions, but also to go through the obstacles. This is what makes the action fun, as they present a good pace to keep the moments interesting, as well as to emphasize the danger that is in store for them and their chance to show off the creative gadgets that they have that helps them get out of some sticky situations, including a fake cloud that they use for travel. At the same time, it's the animation that features the best humor. I think the comedy in general in the picture is mostly mixed, where some are fine and some can be a bit flat. But the best ones are the visual gags that make the moments either slightly amusing or can be chuckle-worthy. The execution of the story may be a letdown, but there was never a doubt on my mind that the animation can recapture the original spirit, and the animator's mission was a real success here. The characters. Before I talk about the chickens themselves, I think it's time that we discuss about the movie's controversy. As you probably know, the cast mostly consists of new actors playing the recurring characters, while 4 of them, Imelda Staunton, Jane Horrocks, Lynn Ferguson, and Miranda Richardson, returned as Bunty, Babs, Mac, and Mrs. Tweedy respectively. But one whom Armin did not bring back that sparked some drama was Julia Sawalha, the original voice of Ginger. According to Sawalha herself, she was allegedly told that her voice is too old to return, since it's been over 20 years since the first film came out. That's why she not only called them ageist for the explanation, but she even went and proved that she could still do the role after all this time.
So laying eggs all your life and then getting plucked, stuffed and roasted is good enough for you, is it? So laying eggs all your life and then getting plucked, stuffed and roasted is good enough for you, is it?
I wasn't on holiday, Babs. I was in solitary confinement.
I wasn't on holiday, Babs. I was in solitary confinement. Don't you see what's happening? They're fattening us up.
They're going to kill us all.
Don't you see what's happening? They're fattening us up. They're going to kill us all.
And honestly, I feel like I'm on her side. Sure, there can be some understandable excuses for some of the other recasting, but why go through the trouble of changing her voice but still bring a handful of others back? Not to mention that even if she sounds older, it would have still worked in the context of the picture, since there was a notable amount of time that has passed since they escaped the farm, and Ginger has become a parent of a girl who looks like she's almost in her teens. Of course, I have nothing against Tendaway Newton in this case. She did a good job replacing Ginger's voice, and she's innocent in all this. But it does give a bad taste from the way Armin poorly handled the situation with how they treated a memorable part of the original.
I used to hate being fenced in. So why did I expect you to be any different? I guess I was afraid you were so much like me.
But speaking of poorly handled, the characters of Dawn of the Nugget received a significant demotion from the first. Like I said, they've been reduced to cliched archetypes where their contributions don't have as much impact to the feature as they used to. Ginger is now the overprotective parent who wants to protect her kid from the dangers that she faced in the first film. And alongside her is Rocky, whom is perfectly comprehensible to why he had to be recast. The more we keep our distance from that Jew hater, the better. And in his place, we have Zachary Levi, a much more likable actor who never publicly said anything stupid that would ruin his— "Oh, come on!" Anyways, with Levi as the voice, I can't help but think that he turned Rocky into Eugene from Tangled if he became a father, especially with that Flynn Rider-style opening.
She pulled us all together and gave us the wings to fly right out of that hen hole. She got every chicken out of there.
As for the other recurring chickens, they just play their simple roles to add their small contributions to either the film or the mission, like Bunty is the muscles, Mac is the brains, Babs is the empty-headed knitter, Fowler is the old rooster, and the rats Nick and Fetcher are the comic reliefs who get emotional with the notion that they are Molly's uncles.
Our little niece? Steady, mate. Stay strong.
And speaking of that new chicken, Molly is the typical leading lady who wants to see the world beyond her home, much to the reluctance of her parents, which results her to become rebellious and go out on her own anyways that led her into this mess. Chances are you've heard of this type of character before, and Molly is no different.
This is all my fault. I should have listened to you and done what I was told. Now everything is a mess.
Another new character here is Frizzle. She starts out as Molly's newfound rebellious friend that goes headfirst into the farm, but her role eventually becomes the MacGuffin to give an excuse for the characters to save all the chickens. Also, with that crazy accent of hers, there may be a chance that some may want to put on the subtitles just to understand her.
But that's not going to stop me. You get to sit in a bucket. What chicken doesn't want to have their own bucket?
But then there is the return of the hen's greatest nightmare, Mrs. Tweedy. You might be wondering, how did she survive getting crushed at the end of the first film? That is a great question.
Nobody knows.
Yeah, despite confirming that this is actually her, they never explain how she's back with another dim-witted husband. And what she does is the same thing as before. Run an evil business that turns chickens into food and showing no mercy to the poultry.
It will be huge, and Militia Tweedy will have her revenge.
I won't say that these characters are terrible. Some of their personalities can shine through in the same way they did in the original, but they are a noticeable downgrade from before. I'm not gonna stoop low and use that shell of their former selves pun, but they are pretty close to that. Let me clarify this now. I don't think this is a bad movie. In fact, there are times where I find this to be enjoyable. However, I feel like my first instincts of this picture have been confirmed after watching this, and now I can confidently say that I believe this is an unnecessary sequel. Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget only holds a fraction of what made the original animated feature great, while the rest is a disappointingly forgettable and unoriginal film. I'll give it that the animation is fantastic and the action scenes are fun to watch, but the writing is so weak that it depends on cliches to fill in the story and the characters to the point that it reduced the picture to be nothing more but a gimmick. It promises to bring back nostalgic chickens on a mission, but nothing else of value to make the movie feel worthwhile. At best, it's a harmless movie, and I believe that it's fine to put it on for the kids to enjoy, but my personal recommendation is to just stick with the first film. You could take a look at the second if you want, but it seriously pales in comparison to the predecessor, so don't set your expectations high. But if you did like your time with this review, then how about giving this a like and subscribe to my channel? You won't have to break into a farm to check out more content like this. I guess this movie came out okay at best, but that still didn't justify the existence of a Chicken Run sequel. They're out of the farm, they're in their sanctuary, and it's best to keep it that way.
Ooh, that went well.